Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our special town meeting. My name is James Kane, and it's my good fortune to serve as your town moderator. To ensure good order, tellers, please raise your hands. The tellers are spread amongst you, and we may need them if we need a standing vote. Thank you very much. Although much progress has been achieved across the Commonwealth, I ask that you review the COVID-19 town meeting guidelines, which are in your packet. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag as we open our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let us get underway with our special town meeting. Our town clerk has advised me that we have a quorum, and our 2021 special town meeting is gavelled into session. I've examined the warrant and the constable's return of service, and both are in good order. I ask your unanimous consent to dispense with the reading of the warrant and the constable's return. There's no objection, so ordered. I also ask that you provide me with the, that you deputize Bob Holland of Precinct 8 to serve as deputy moderator in an adjacent room for those who cannot wear a mask. There's no objection, so ordered. Thank you very much, Bob. Before we begin to consider the articles for this evening, I'd like to review several procedural rules that govern our town meeting. Each town meeting member, upon checking in, should have received a color sticker, which must be worn prominently on your person throughout the meeting. All speakers must be recognized by the moderator. If you wish to speak, please move to one of the standing microphones and wait to be recognized. You must begin your comments by stating your name and precinct number. Please address all questions and comments to me, and we will refer them off to the appropriate person for a response. Please limit your questions or comments to no more than a couple of minutes, and please don't ask a redundant question. During the discussion of each article, I will ask the chair of the Finance Committee, Mark Adler, for the committee's recommendations on the motion as it's required by state law. Following the discussion of each article, I will indicate whether a majority or greater number of votes is required to pass. I will then call for a voice vote in the first instance, and if I am uncertain whether the motion passes or is defeated by a voice vote, or if at least 7 town meeting members raise their hands and challenge the sufficiency of the vote, I will ask for a standing vote to eliminate any doubt. On the stage with me this evening is our town manager, Kevin Mizikar, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, John Samia, who will now introduce his colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To my left is John LeBeau, our Vice Chair, Morris DiPaolo, Clerk, and members Beth Cassavant and Teresa Flynn.
Thank you very much. To my right, our Town Clerk, Sharon Thomas, Town Council, Steve Medaus, Assistant Town Manager, Kristen Lass, and Chairman of the Finance Committee, Mark Adler. Would you please introduce your colleagues, Mark?
Thank you. In the front 2 rows on this side are front row Carlos Garcia, Rajiv Dayal, Hannah Kane, and Alan Jarrell. Second row, Vikram Chabra, Dennis O'Connell, and Lena Polito.
Thank you very much. There are no other matters to come before us. We'll now get underway with Article 1. Mr. Samia. Excuse me. Prior to Article 1, I call your attention to Mr. Samia. He has requested, as Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, to be recognized for the purposes of updating the town meeting on the Strategic Planning Initiative and provide a statement with reference to Article 16. Mr. Samia.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting members. My name is John Samia, and I'm the chair of the Shrewsbury Board of Selectmen. As you recall, the May 2021 annual town meeting appropriated $99,000 for the Board of Selectmen to undertake a multi-year visioning and strategic planning initiative. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen and Town Manager's Office, it is my pleasure to provide an update to you with regards to our work. The Board of Selectmen met during the summer over the course of 2 meetings to refine our approach and set goals for this initiative in the coming years. This resulted in direction to the Town Manager for the following. First, conduct a survey to benchmark residents' opinions and the town's performance in comparison to similar communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and across the country. The town will partner with Polco to conduct a national community survey within the coming months. Second, to solicit proposals from experienced consultants to help facilitate a community-engaged visioning process to have residents define their ideal Shrewsbury in 2030 and develop a strategic plan to get there. During this process, the town manager and his team secured a $50,000 grant through the Commonwealth's Community Compact Program, which will help offset the cost of those two key initiatives. We engaged in a request for proposals process. On August 18th, the town issued a request for proposal to find this consultant. 30 firms from across the country requested the RFP packet. 7 firms participated in a pre-proposal conference on September 1st, and 5 firms submitted formal proposals by the September 20th deadline. Their proposals were reviewed by a team of staff and representative of the Board of Selectmen. Interviews were conducted with 2 finalists. At the Board of Selectmen's meeting on October 12th, the board authorized the town manager to engage in contract negotiations with Raftellus. Raftellus has worked with over 600 local government agencies in 46 states on similar projects. They are currently working with the towns of Nantucket and Lexington. In 2018, they completed a similar initiative for the town of Westboro. They have clearly demonstrated their ability to lead successful, community-engaged visioning and strategic planning projects. Residents will receive timely updates so that they can prepare to participate in both the National Community Survey and the visioning and strategic planning process. The Board of Selectmen recognizes the importance of community engagement and strategic planning. We request town meeting members help not only as a participant, but also as leaders in our community. We will need your help with a proactive communication and civic engagement with all residents, which in turn will ensure that our strategic planning process achieves one of the essential desired outcomes, namely that our strategic plan meets the purpose statement of the town strategic planning approach, which is the town of Shrewsbury is dedicated to fostering a vibrant, economically competitive, and safe community for all to thrive. We look forward to working with you as key stakeholders and all residents in Shrewsbury to define a vision for 2030 and build the framework to get there. In addition to giving direction to the town manager regarding strategic planning, the Board of Selectmen also identified the town's most pressing challenges as follows. How do we create agreement about financial resources and management in Shrewsbury? How do we establish an infrastructure that maximizes community satisfaction and quality of life? How do we implement the priorities of the override? How do we address changing demographics and expectations? And how do we implement our plans for economic vibrancy? The board has prioritized the following four goal areas and defined associated performance areas and characteristics to begin to address the identified pressing challenges. First is to build and maintain reliable infrastructure, which included associated performance areas of hardened infrastructure to prepare for climate impacts, smart technology, also prospective investments which are sustainable into the future. Second, promote economic growth, including a focus on commercial and industrial tax base growth and fortified through resilient government economic structure. Third, quality of life, providing a safe community for all, high-quality universal education access, affordable housing, social and emotional well-being, and invest in parks and recreation. Fourth, effective government, including a strategic plan, effective communication with residents, and reduce the town's impact on climate change. Consistent with our goal of providing a safe community for all, we had brought forward Article 16 as a proactive approach to address concerns from multiple residents regarding traffic, speed, and roadway safety generally. Article 16 was brought forward quickly as a result of a couple factors. First, the parcel of property that Article 16 seeks to authorize the purchase of recently became available. As we all know, real estate is at a premium, and Shrewsbury is no exception. We believed that we needed to act quickly and responsibly, balancing the need for speed against the potential lack of fulsome details. Second, this article was presented to fix what many residents and town officials have viewed as a safety problem for over 20 years through the purchase of a parcel of property that in turn could be used to proactively and strategically address an issue which may be exacerbated by increased traffic resulting from the development of the Market Basket property. However, we have heard the concerns expressed by many residents regarding this warrant article, including those at the recently held Finance Committee public hearing. We also recognize that the materials in the town meeting packet were not as fulsome as they could have been. While this is primarily due to timing issues, we also recognize that we can and will do better going forward. Finally, we recognize that a piecemeal approach in achieving the town's strategic goals is not the most effective option, even where the option that we seek to achieve may not be available in the near future. As a result, the Board of Selectmen convened here at Oak immediately prior to town meeting convened and re-voted 5-0 to recommend defeat of Article 16, with the firm belief that we will take huge steps forward as a community soon enough through the strategic planning process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Samia. We'll now move to Article 1. John?
I move the printed motion under Article 1.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to move the motion under Article 1. Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 1.
Questions or comments with reference to Article 1? Not hearing or seeing any. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. It's unanimous. Article 2.
I move the printed motion under Article 2.
Second.
Printed motion under Article 2 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 2.
Are there any comments or questions with reference to Article 2? Article 2 requires a simple majority. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Article 3, Mr. Samia.
I move the printed motion under Article 3.
Second.
A printed motion under Article 3 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 3.
Comments or questions with reference to Article 3? Not hearing or seeing any.
Jim?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Byrne.
Mr. I missed that, excuse me.
Sorry.
Was it Mr. Pitney and then Mr. Byrne?
Sure.
Very good. Mr. Pitney.
Patrick Pitney, Precinct 5. I was just curious, I know there's a reduction in the pension fund liability and a transfer over to the OPEB payment. I was wondering what the future impact of the inflationary pressures we're currently facing could have on those accounts.
Mr. Manager?
I guess I'm not exactly sure. So you're the general inflation on the future fund balances
Well, how could
there?
that, how could the inflation, currently we're in an inflationary period. How could those payments change in the future, you know, next year or things like that? Are we facing a future pension liability? Would we be able to fund OPEB more? Those types of things. What's your vision of the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes, so our pension system, of course, is a defined benefit pension system. So there's a formula that is used for each and every employee based upon their earnings over the course of 3 or 5 years, depending on when they came into the system. So there's no impact except for on the pensioner on the value of the dollar that they receive. So inflation doesn't really impact our fund balance or our accrued liability or general financial status. Certainly there's swings in the stock market that impact our cash and market value. And those are mitigated as much as possible through what's called asset smoothing, where we don't take all the gains in the first year and we don't reduce the amounts by all the losses in any single year. So it's smoothed over a defined amount of time. And we maintain an actuary who studies our system on an annual basis as of January each year, so we can right-size the contribution depending on the prior year's market adjustments. So we're always on top of that. With regards to OPEB, there's general inflation in the medical services, but again, our contribution to our retirees' health insurance, which is what OPEB is defined. The town pays 50% of their health insurance costs on an annual basis. Certainly, as general services increase in cost, our costs will increase over time, as will the pensioners, but that's all really managed over the long run, and these short fluctuations in the marketplace will not put us in, a severely underhanded or more beneficial position.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Mr. Byrne.
Mr. Moderator, I'm going to talk very loudly because it would take me 20 minutes.
Could we move that to you? Patrick, before you get comfortable, can you run that up to him, please?
No.
Thank you.
I can still yell. I prefer the one on the other side, sir. My question, Mr. Moderator, was basically if somebody could explain to us what that article meant in 3 sentences or less. And since the manager went over substantially more than three sentences, I guess I'm satisfied. It would just help in a brief sort of way if they can explain to us what this was all about.
Absolutely.
Mr. Pitney's question was very appropriate, and I thank the manager for whatever it was that he said.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. So in 3 sentences, that not counting is one of them, this is a overall decrease in the reduction of total spending from what was proposed at the annual town meeting by $1,741,573.88. We are transferring $2.2 million from the pension system and distributing among various other departments and reducing the funding that is needed for debt service due to the sale of Centec North and a financing of the debt associated with the Sherwood Middle School. This will save the average single-family home approximately $125 per year in comparison to the budget passed in May.
Further comments or questions with reference to Article 3? Mr. Budenhagen.
Moderator, looking at page 3 on the department breakdowns, town manager, new human resource coordinator. We recently hired a human resource individual to handle, I thought, the human resource problems in the town. And the second thing is on the additional new assistant town planner. Could you give us a little more description on what their duties are, and then I'd like a follow-up.
Yes, of course. Mr. Manager.
Sure. So, Mr. Budenhagen, you are correct. This is the second human resources generalist position that we are seeking to hire. Briefly, the town municipal side operations has 250 employees. We are in a day-to-day situation where our human resources coordinator is doing nothing but advertising per positions, interviewing people, making hiring decisions, dealing with the next person that's finding another job or someone that retires. So it's a task-by-task, day-by-day situation. 1 to 250 is not an appropriate level of human resources support staff to properly support our employees. We're not able to get to areas like development of employees, training programs, handling matters of diversity, equity, inclusion, and policies and practices as we wish. Hiring a second person will enable us to get there with a more fully staffed human resource function. The same is the case for the assistant town planner. Assistant Town Manager Kristen Lass may be able to fill in a few more details, but We're proposing this second position in commitment to dedicating resources to economic development, supporting the Community Preservation Act that was put into place at the start of this July, and managing affordable housing needs of the community.
If I could just have a follow-up.
Yes, Mr. Budenhagen.
Okay, on the human resource, you've got an additional 30,000, an additional 52, and an additional 30,000. What is the cost per year for the full salary and benefits for each one of those?
So the Human Resources Coordinator position, it's 7 months, so it's roughly $52,000 a year. The same for the Assistant Planner. The 5,200 represents the difference from what the current town planner is paid to what the promotion rate would be when the position is elevated to the department head. So that, again, is roughly 7/12 out of the total year. The total position is roughly $85,000 a year.
Further comments or questions, Mr. Sigelniak?
John Sigelnick, Precinct 2. In regards to the approximate average value of $125 reduction on the tax bill, I guess my question is how does this play going forward? Your basic tax levy this year is like $80 million. So does this 1.7 million reduce that going forward? Are we going to just pick up with the current tax levy and go forward, which in effect would erase the $125 savings plus 2.5? Or is the 125 going to be carried forward forever?
Mr. Manager.
So the town has a levy ceiling. It's the maximum, a levy limit, excuse me, the maximum amount of taxes that we're allowed to raise in every given year. So through this plan, the Board of Selectmen is proposing not going to the levy limit, but staying roughly $1.7 million below that amount. When we get back to the annual town meeting next year, if resources are required, we will be able to raise back up to the entire levy limit, which is the money that we're raising this year, plus the $1.7 million that we're not choosing to raise right now, plus 2.5%. So this plan is being brought forth because of several factors, one being the Board of Selectmen's commitment to not raising to the levy limit because of the additional tax burden this year because of the override, and two, because of the opportunity to use federal stimulus dollars to offset any new one-time expenses in certain situations. So when the board spoke in public in the spring, they said they would do everything that they could to mitigate the impact on the taxpayer for fiscal year '22 because of the steep increase relative to the override. And that is the work that has been done since May until now to find that $125 tax bill reduction.
One follow-up, John?
Yes, just one. My understanding of the 2.5 law, though, is if you don't raise funds up to the levy limit, you can't bump that going forward. Whatever you have listed, you have to carry that forward. So if you raise something less than the 2, if 80 million for some reason becomes 79, that becomes your base going forward. You can't jump to the additional funds or the additional maximum and take that forward.
No, that's not the case. You always have the ability to go back to the prior year's levy limit, and that's where you start your 2.5 count from.
Further comments or questions with reference to Article 3? Ms. Arcadi.
Good evening, Mary Arcadi, Precinct 5, Brookwood Drive. I'd like to speak in support of this article. If anything, I want to commend the town and the board for dealing with the OPEB. Many municipalities do not have the capacity to deal with that, and it is something that we are setting ourselves up for the future. I also think while it may not be clear the full salaries of the positions, the fact that our personnel costs are the largest part of our budget, and we only have one HR coordinator, is problematic. So I think this is a step in the right direction for human resources. I'd love to see the town move towards maybe its long-term goal of having a human resources department, and I think that that would be good. You think about, look at our budget, how much of it is personnel cost related, and in planning, if we don't have planning, we don't have the economic development, we don't have the balancing of all the things that we're looking for. So I would highly recommend and encourage my colleagues to support this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments and questions on Article 3? Not seeing any hands, this requiring a simple majority. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Passed unanimously. Article 4.
I move the printed motion under Article 4.
Article 4 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 4.
Comments or questions with reference to Article 4? Not seeing or hearing any. This requiring a simple majority. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Passed unanimously. Article 5.
I move the printed motion under Article 5.
The printed motion has been moved and seconded under Article 5. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 5.
Comments or questions with reference to Article 5? Not seeing any hands or hearing any, and this requiring a simple majority. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Article 6.
I move the printed motion under Article 6.
The printed motion has been moved and seconded under Article 6. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 6.
Questions and comments with reference to Article 6? The gentleman toward the rear.
Stephen Hess, Precinct 8. Article 6 is looking to spend $2 million to replace one bridge and repair another. And I understand the repair on Nursery Drive is to ensure continuous egress for less than 40 homes. However, I don't understand the priority for the second egress. It appears that the cost of that would be more than $1 million since you need to replace the whole bridge. Will you please help me understand why we need a second bridge for this subdivision?
Mr. Manager.
Sure. So in 2015 or 16, the bridge was deemed structurally unsound and ultimately removed in 2018. The town accepted this subdivision in the 90s with 2 points of access to the community, and it unfortunately had to be removed in 2018, and we're concerned with the structural integrity of the structures on Nursery Drive, which we intend to make those repairs. You are correct. The cost breakdown between those two different aspects is $1.3 million for the reconstruction of the Toblin Hill Bridge and $700,000 for structural repairs to Nursery Drive. We are restoring the community roadway access as it was originally accepted. There's also utility infrastructure that's just suspended and runs in the area where the Toblin Hill Bridge was, so that will be all reincorporated and reintegrated into the replacement bridge.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Follow up?
Yes, please. There's about 36 homes there. I understand there's a slight inconvenience, but the inconvenience is less than a quarter-mile drive. And there's no site limitations on Nursery Drive to get onto Walnut. And I just don't understand that significant cost for a second egress that seems redundant.
Any further follow-up on that, Mr. Manager? Okay. Thank you, sir. Further comments or questions on Article 6? Not seeing or hearing any, this requiring a simple majority. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article 7.
I move the printed motion under Article 7.
Second.
The printed motion under Article 2 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 7.
Comments or questions with reference to Article 7? Mr. Byrne.
Speaking very loudly. Kevin Byrne from Precinct 6. Again, for the benefit of not necessarily the folks here, Mr. Moderator, but the folks that are watching this through the good graces of our cable television programs, it might be appropriate to give a brief explanation as to what each of these articles is suggesting.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Mr. Manager, do you want to cover this one as it's so unique, given its
Sure.
newness?
Yeah. So through the general laws, there is a assessment placed upon each transportation network company ride. Uber and Lyft are the most notable transportation network companies that provide these types of services. The town receives 10 cents each time a ride originates within the community. And in 2019 and 2020, that means 183,252 rides originated in Shrewsbury, and we get 10 cents per ride. We're allowed to ask town meeting to appropriate these funds into a limited type of use for certain projects, and we're proposing that they are used for the purposes of sidewalk, crosswalk, pedestrian, and mobility initiatives. So again, it's $18,325.20 we're seeking appropriation for.
Further comments or questions with reference to Article 7? Not seeing any hands. This requiring a simple majority. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Article 7 passes unanimously. Article 8.
I move the printed motion under Article 8.
Second.
Printed motion under Article 8 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 8.
Mr. Manager, would you like to give us a synopsis of Article 8, please?
It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you. Anytime, former Mr. Moderator.
So Article 8 proposes to use $50,000 in free cash for the purpose of paying costs associated with schematic design for the replacement of the windows at the Oak Middle School. We're seeking a partnership agreement with the MSBA through their accelerated repair program, and if accepted into that through their vote on October 27th, they would contribute 52% of the costs. Again, at this time, we are only seeking funding for the schematic design and would be back as soon as the annual town meeting requesting the town's full contribution. The project is budgeted at roughly $1 million, and we will likely be eligible for 52% reimbursement through the MSBA's accelerated repair program.
Thank you. Further comments or questions with reference to Article 8? Not seeing or hearing any. This requiring a simple majority. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Article 9.
I move the printed motion under Article 9.
Second.
Printed motion under Article 9 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends unanimously passage of Article 9.
Mr. Manager, Article 9.
I was hoping you weren't going to ask that for this one. This seeks to accept Clause 22G in Chapter 59 of Section 5 of the general laws, which enables the town to provide a tax exemption to individuals who have a veteran status but have placed their properties into an estate or trust for estate planning purposes. There was a unfortunate miss within the general laws, and this clause allows that benefit to be conferred upon, again, veterans who have placed their home into a trust or conservatorship. And without accepting this, those folks would be ineligible for a benefit that's really due to them as a veteran.
Thank you very much. Further comments or questions with reference to Article 9? Not hearing or seeing any. This requiring a majority vote. Would all those in favor of Article 9 please signify by saying aye?
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article 10.
I move the printed motion under Article 10.
Second.
The printed motion under Article 10 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 10.
Comments and questions with reference to Article 10. Mr. Manager, quick synopsis.
This is the establishment of a special purpose stabilization fund for the benefit of the sewer system.
Comments or questions with reference to Article 10? Not seeing or hearing any, this requiring a 2/3 vote to establish the fund. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article 11.
I move the printed motion under Article 11.
Second.
Article 11 printed motion having been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 11.
Mr. Manager.
This article proposes to move $1,070,679.43 into the account that was established through the previous article. It will be used for the benefit of the sewer system. This is coming from a previous general sewer account, which was our former way of handling stabilization for that, and then $200,000 that has been raised through the rates but yet to be appropriated.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Further comments or questions regarding Article 11? Not hearing or seeing any in this article requiring a simple majority. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article 12.
I move the printed motion under Article 12.
Second.
The printed motion under Article 12 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 12.
And I have with me a letter dated October 8th from Bernard Cahill on behalf of the Planning Board Chairman, Stephen Boulay, indicating that they voted unanimously to recommend approval of Article 12. Are there any, Bernie, quick synopsis of 12, please?
Yes, when the new Beale School was created or constructed, as some of you may know, the Lake Street was realigned slightly to get rid of that dangerous curve that was in it prior. In doing so, it actually ended up shifting the B1 residence district slightly to the west. And you can fit, I think I've been saying on most of my presentations, about 4 or 5 cars in this little area. And so this is just to adjust that zoning district to line up with the right-of-way of the road, which it was before. So it's a little bit of a cleanup.
Further comments or questions regarding Article 12? I'm not hearing or seeing any. This vote requiring 2/3 as it's a zoning bylaw. All those in favor of Article 12 shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. We voted unanimous. Article 13.
I move the printed motion under Article 13.
Second.
The printed motion under Article 13 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 13.
And I have with me a letter dated October 8th, signed by Bernard Cahill on behalf of Stephen C. Boulay, Chairman of the Shrewsbury Planning Board, indicating I lost my other glasses, to be honest with you, and I apologize for that, but it appears that...
Unanimous recommendation.
You voted it.
Yeah, unanimous recommendation. Yep,
I apologize for that.
that's right. I can
The
see.
reality we face. Article 13.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 13, so I think as many of you know, outdoor dining has become very popular during COVID. The Planning and Economic Development Department wanted to kind of take advantage of this upswell and kind of support for that type of activity. So what we've proposed here in Article 13 is we're trying to streamline it a little bit, make it easier for businesses in town. Part of that involves updating and refining one of the definitions. The other thing we wanted to do, because it really didn't make sense before, was we wanted to make sure where outdoor services are allowed is also the same place where indoor services are allowed. So we've added a couple districts for outdoor service, including limited business and limited commercial business. And then finally, the final thing we did, which we think is going to have a big impact, is we've taken out the responsibility of the requirement to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals to get a special permit for outdoor dining. So it's now just going to be reviewed by staff. So myself, building department, fire, just to make sure it meets all the codes and everything's up to snuff and isn't going to be a problem. So we're trying to reduce barriers to this use. We think everyone's enjoying outdoor dining. We don't want to see it go away. So we're trying to streamline it, and we hope this works.
Thank you very much. Further comments or questions regarding Article 13? Not hearing or seeing any. This requiring a 2/3 vote. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Carries unanimously. Article 14.
I move the substitute motion under Article 14.
Second.
The substitute motion under Article 14 has been moved and seconded. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommended passage of the original Article 14 that was in your packet. Since the substitute motion is substantially the same as the original one, no further action was taken.
I have a letter in my hands dated October 18th, indicating that the revised motions was reviewed by the Planning Board meeting and voted unanimously in support of. Further comments or questions on the substitute motion under Article 14? Not hearing or seeing any.
Over there.
What's that? Oh, Ms. Swydan, good evening. Thank you, Mark.
Could I just have an explanation?
Please identify yourself.
Carol Swydan, Precinct 6. Wireless telecommunications tower, I know that's the big ones, but what's the small wireless facility?
Mr. Cahill.
Yes, certainly. Do you want to give me I'm going to give a brief overview of the whole thing, I think. This will help explain it, I think. So I'll back up, though. I'll answer that question first. Fair question. So we all know what a wireless telecommunication tower is, a cell tower. Small cell wireless, these are things, well, I have a definition here if you want. So these are things that are antennas that are mounted on structures of 50 feet or less. They tend to be no more than 3 cubic feet in volume, and they would be on things such as telephone poles, any other kind of utility pole. And their idea is that it creates a small web of a network rather than a large antenna, which just goes to a wider area. So the whole idea is a blanket coverage. Some people know it as 5G, but that's essentially what this is. It's literally a small cell that goes up on a tower, not a tower, a telephone pole. So that's the definition of that. So versus a large cell tower, this is something smaller, and the idea is that you're never losing coverage as you move through town or your city or what have you through a neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Cahill. Further comments or questions on this article?
Do you want me to summarize the whole thing?
Oh, unless people have questions, they must be satisfied.
That's fine.
Yes, sir.
Dave Sargent, Precinct 2. Out of curiosity, when this is allowed just as a use to be reviewed by the board, or I'm sorry, by staff to decide whether or not to allow these in right of way, that means existing like telephone poles or structures that are within the right-of-way, that's not going to make people just, hey, I'm going to throw up a 50-foot pole and stick something on top of it?
Mr. Cahill?
Sorry, can you clarify your question?
Well, I'm assuming what we're talking about is something the size of like a transformer on a telephone pole that would be attached to a telephone pole. But this would be so it would be existing structures. There wouldn't be any need for anyone to build something new.
Yes, so at least, I mean, they could in theory, but it couldn't exceed the heights that would require it. So 50 feet would be your maximum height. But for the most part, a company's not going to come in and expend more money when they can attach it to something that exists.
Right.
What we're proposing here is that Selco in the right-of-way would have purview over their poles, because they are their poles. And we've been working with Selco on this, the planning department, so they're going to have their own aesthetic requirements. They're going to have their own technical requirements. And when someone comes to propose one of these, which we haven't actually had one yet, we're trying to get out ahead of it, that would go through a Selco review. If it comes on a private property, so say someone wants to put it on, you have a large piece of property in a commercial area and they want to put something on a structure you have there, it would go through special permit by the planning board, which would actually use Selco's requirements for aesthetics and technical review.
Okay, and just to throw a curveball at you, if I could have a follow-up?
No, go ahead.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yeah. If someone decided they wanted to have, say, balloons, because I know there are some talk about that in other places that don't have them, if they wanted to float a balloon within the right-of-way at a specific height to get a broader coverage, is that something that you're looking at, someone would want to do?
I don't want to speak on behalf of Chris Roy and Selco, but I can't imagine that they would allow that. We also have height requirements for structures in town, so they would have to meet those height requirements as well.
Okay, so that would include anything in the airspace?
Yeah, they couldn't put like a 300-foot balloon in the air.
Silly question,
So-
yeah, I know, but...
No, fair enough. That's okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further comments or questions regarding Article 14? Yes, good evening, Ms. Deering.
Martha Deering, Precinct 4. I have one question and then a follow-up. On page 16 of the original, why is small wireless facility outside public right-of-way saying special permit and then planning board? I don't understand why both of those are there.
Mr. Cahill.
Right. So we're changing, what we're proposing here is currently it's by Zoning Board of Appeals review. The proposal is to change it to the planning board. Actually, most other towns besides Shrewsbury do it this way because planning boards are much more familiar with site plan review than Zoning Board of Appeals. We deal mostly with like special permits and variances. So the idea is to put it into the hands of a board that is much more familiar with site plans and how to review them.
Okay, the second question is, I've compared the two. They really don't seem to have any differences. Why did we have this?
Yeah, I can explain that as well.
Mr. Cahill will point that
Sure.
out to you.
Under where it says we're proposing a subsection to the zoning bylaw, under A2, A3, it used to say that special permits would expire after 5 years and need to return to the planning board for review. We went back after some discussion with the planning board, with the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee to town council. These committees had some concerns about it during the public hearings. Under town council's recommendation, we took it out. Special permits already have their own kind of expiration date if they're not acted on within 2 years, and we don't do this to any other special permits, and town council recommended that it was best to remove it. The other small thing was simply a typo where we reference federal code. We had 1455 brackets 1. It's actually bracket A, so we had to change that reference.
So we're actually voting on this? On the
Correct, yeah, those are the two changes. So we removed one sentence, and then we added the correct letter to a reference.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further comments or questions on Article 14? Yes. Good evening.
Mr. Dupre, Precinct 1. I just had a question of, since it's going to be two different, it almost seems categories, meaning a larger antenna or smaller, Does the process change in notifying residents when smaller communication, wireless and whatnot, does that process change to notify butters, what it's going to look like? Is it labeled properly? All those types of information.
Right, so a special permit's a special permit. So if someone comes in for whatever special permit in town, whatever the use, the notification's the exact same that they're required for butters.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Further comments or questions on Article 14? Not hearing and seeing any. This article requiring a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of Article 14 shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries. Article 15.
I move the printed motion under Article 15.
Second. The printed motion under Article 15 has been made and seconded. Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends passage of Article 15.
Mr. Cahill, a quick overview.
Yes, the planning board also voted unanimously to recommend.
Ernie, you jumped me on that. I was going to read the letter, but go ahead.
No problem. So the Town Center District, thank you all. This town meeting voted for it last August 2020 to create the new Town Center zoning district. So far, it's been great having it there. We're still working on it. What this one does is this article would put the Town Center zoning district into our existing inclusionary housing. So right now, depending on what residential district you're in, there's a percentage that's required to include essentially affordable housing units. So right now, as proposed, if a development were to come into the town center, say, for 10 units, under this plan, under this proposal, it'd be 12.5% of that 10-unit apartment building would have to be affordable units. The idea is that we want to keep producing those units to keep up with our subsidized housing inventory, which affects our 40B threshold of 10%. We don't want to fall behind on that. We thought 12.5% was also the best because the two zoning districts immediately around the town center district, the B1 and B2 districts, are also 12.5%. So we thought it made a lot of good sense. It was just enough to keep us moving on the SHI, the subsidized housing inventory, but at the same time not put up too big of a barrier that someone's not going to want to develop something of a good size in the town center.
Thank you, Bernie. I have a letter signed by Bernard Cahill on behalf of the chairman of the planning board, Stephen C. Boulay, indicating that the planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval of Article 15 on October 7th. Questions or comments with reference to Article 15? Not seeing or hearing anyone. This requiring a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of Article 15 shall signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimous. Article 16. Thank you, Bernie.
I move the printed motion under Article 16.
Second. The printed motion under Article 16 has been moved and seconded. Mr. Adler, the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee recommends defeat of Article 16. The vote was 8-1.
Mr. Samia.
Mr. Moderator, as mentioned, and town meeting members, as mentioned earlier, the board reconsidered this warrant article immediately prior to this meeting and recommended a 5-0 vote to defeat this article. While initially sought as a strategic endeavor to address prospective traffic concerns, we realize that the materials are not as fulsome and the timing is not right at this time, and look forward to developing a more cohesive approach as part of the strategic planning process. Thank you.
Do you want to make that in form of a motion? Further, well, I'll open it up in the event there's a follow-up. Any comments or questions with respect to Article 16? Not hearing or seeing any. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Ms. Hollenbach, I'm sorry about that.
Right, correct.
Melissa Hollenbach, Precinct 9. I spent a little time looking at the town GIS property, looking at this particular property, and I drive by it quite a bit, and talking about the strategic plan. It looks like a very important property for the town, particularly when you start considering our CPA funding and things like that, that it does abut other town properties. It's in an area where we have other lands and parks, that it might be something that is very valuable to the town for open space, for parks, for recreation. There's also a pond there. It also has an agricultural history attached to it as well. So I just really want to make it publicly known that this is something that I feel the town really should be looking at for CPA funding in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments with reference to Article 16? Not seeing or hearing any. Did you say something? No. All those in favor of Article 16 shall signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The nays have it. Does not pass. There are no other items to come before us this evening, so I would accept the motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed. Have a great evening. Thank you.
So I didn't understand what you were going to do that as part of your opening remarks, and I think that was